um, gender parity. And in just a few moments, we'll be having another topic, which will be our final topic for today in Women in Shared Prosperity webinar, brought to you by Institute Masa Depan Malaysia Talent Corp Women Girls, supported by Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga dan Masyarakat. Thank you so much. And our topic today will be about social well-being. Now, I would like to introduce to you a very popular moderator, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, tiba-tiba got slang like that, right? She is an actress, television host, and radio announcer from Malaysia. All right, currently she is with Mixed FM and the face of product Softland and the spokesperson for Yayasan Anak Warisan Alam, or YAWA, a Malaysian non-profit organization established to instill a love of the environment in youths. And she is none other than, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Aisha Sinclair.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mr. The Voice. Thank you for that introduction. Ha, ha, ha. Since we started the whole French vibe, I can do it. No. Ha, ha, ha.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sharizan, for that. Yeah, I actually joined in earlier and I was watching the earlier moderation session and it was very, very interesting and very educational. So I shall take over, from here, and I'd love to introduce my my panel to you. But first of all, I want to say thank you so much to the organizers for this opportunity to be part of the Women in Shared Prosperity webinar. Like I said, the earlier session was very informative. I hope this one will be for you too. I know personally that I will be learning a lot of things. Now, for this session, we will be focusing on social well-being of women, and our panelists will be talking about education, better employment opportunities with social protection, violence against women, and this is all in ensuring optimal social well-being for women. So it is a great honor for me to introduce to you my panelists for today. I shall start off with Basmavati Krishnan. She's the president of the Association of Women with Disabilities. In 2013, Basmavati was appointed as the first female senator representing people with disabilities in the House of Parliament, and she served 2 terms. Next up is Z Avi. She is a Malaysian singer, songwriter, and also visual artist. Z is also the winner of the International Youth Icon Award 2011, which has led to many speaking engagements around the world. Our next panelist is Siti Aisha Hassan Hasri. She is the founder of Spot Community Program. This is a program I absolutely love, and I have actually sent my my older daughter for several of their sessions. It's an education program that provides comprehensive sexual education to girls, you know, within the age group. I think it starts at 9 and it will goes on. And of course, our thorn amongst the roses, Mr. Ryan Ng. He is the head of public sector for LinkedIn. And as the head of public sector, Ryan's responsible for driving engagement and relations with ministries, public agencies, and also education and healthcare institutions. Wow, thank you so much, guys, for being with us today. Now, this is how it's going to work. We're going to have a little chat session. You know, I'll be asking you guys one question each, and then towards the end, we will be opening it up to questions from the viewers. We've got viewers on Zoom, as you can see right now. We've got about plenty of people within the Zoom chat. We've also coming to you live on Facebook. So hopefully we'll be able to, you know, just pick up a few questions there if we get the chance. So to our viewers, if at any moment you have something to ask and you want to ask it or specifically direct it to people, just put it within the chat or our little Q&A box. And at the end, we'll have a chance for the panelists to hopefully answer your questions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right into this, shall we? My first question is going to be for Siti Aisha. You know, I'll just call you Aisha. All right, so Aisha, you know, one
Aisha
of the pillars, Aisha and Aisha, right? I hope I don't get confused. So one of the pillars of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is that quality education for all. So what is your opinion on the current overview of sexual education for young women in Malaysia.
Thank you so much, Aisha, for having me as part of your panel for the day. Thank you, Institute Master. Thank you, everyone. Yes, to answer your question, we are a work in progress. We are setting a standard that is rights-based, that is age and developmentally appropriate, that is culturally sensitive, one that is unique to Malaysia, one that involves all stakeholders, especially children and young women themselves. Currently, the best comprehensive sexuality education providers would create a curriculum that is based on the international technical guidance of sexuality education that was produced by UNESCO, UNFPA, and UNICEF together in 2018. As a matter of fact, that was how the standard that was set for sport itself. I know that YB Hanayo had a national roadmap planned, so we need to come together and dive deeper into what's really, really needed in terms of sexuality education. We have amazing plans and we have amazing systems, but just like the panelists before this had mentioned, implementation can be improved. Right? For example, Ministry of Education stated that we actually have had sex education in schools in the curriculum since the year 1989. Some of us listening probably were not even born yet at that point of time. But according to a BBC report that was made last year, the then Deputy Education Minister, Teoni Cheng, actually referred to a failure of quality control. And she had rightly pointed out that the general understanding of sex education is still very low. So we need to continuously work very, very hard on it, because we all know, the lack of high quality age and developmentally appropriate sexuality and relationship education may leave children and young people, young women especially, vulnerable to harmful sexual behaviors and sexual exploitation, which is detrimental to the social and economic growth of our nation.
Wow. Okay. So I have a follow-up question. So you said that, the program that was created under SPOT, the standards were set by UNESCO. This is an international, international guidance. So it's a guideline to follow. But you see, when it comes to sexual education in Malaysia, a lot, and I'm sure a lot of Southeast Asian countries will face this, but culture and religion is very much part of it. So to a certain extent, it can help. To a certain extent, it can be a hindrance. So how do you work around this?
Working around it is one thing. Okay, sorry. Working around it is one thing. I would say this as a young person, which everyone on this panelists are, I'm very sure, as young people, we have learned to not just work around it, but work together. And now we are going through the mammoth task of making other people allies as well, because we are only half of the population, and we need to get the other half of the population involved in supporting us. But working together with all stakeholders. As I mentioned earlier, we need to get all stakeholders involved. We get the children involved. As a matter of fact, just last weekend on Saturday, which I think your daughter attended, we had an online event that happened. The youngest speaker was 4 years old, Maria Medina, and she was teaching her peers about safe and unsafe touches, what feels like caring and safe touches for her, and what feels like unsafe and harmful touches for her. So we get everyone involved, and by having them involved, we get the parents involved as well, and we get the teachers who are also parents and future parents involved. So it's getting everyone to work together. I've always said this, right, to the young women who work with me. I always say, we don't need to go out there and beat up all the rapists and criminals, but we need to work together and get them involved, get everyone involved in creating a safer space for all of us, each and every one of us, because we need everyone to understand that we don't want to feel unsafe like that in the first place. But so work together. It's we have passed working around, I think. We have passed the time that we work around. I think now is the time of working together in a shared prosperity vision.
That is quite true, actually. And I love to see that, okay, so your program is, I mean, your workforce, the people that you get involved, your speakers, they're also very young women who are very driven also. And I see an openness from parents and hopefully educators. And hopefully this will be part of the integrated syllabus. By the way, I remember our sex education, because since 1989, if I'm not mistaken, in Form 3, you cover one, like in chapter 1 of science or biology, you kind of cover the reproductive system, but that's just it, the science behind it. There's nothing to do with the sensitivity of it and, knowing your worth and all that. Anyway, I have tons more questions for you later, but I'm going to move along to Bakma. If I'm going to ask you about, the role and participation of women with disabilities in the workforce, also in the public and the private sectors. How is that now? I mean, are there a lot of opportunities?
Right. When talking about myself, I went into the workforce while I was on a wheelchair way back in 1979. Right. So that was way back when, the internet wasn't so developed, and that, I had my job as a librarian at the University of Malaya, and I served for 25 years. Well, the situation now, things have advanced so much. And as far as employment for disabled persons are concerned, of course, there are a lot of gaps and a lot of hindrances, a lot of barriers to get them into the workforce, generally for male and female, across the gender. And as a senator, I was concentrating on both men and women as well. And in 1988, the then Prime Minister came up with a policy saying that the 1% of jobs in the private sector and 1% of jobs in the public sector should be reserved for persons with disabilities. And until now, we have not reached that yet. We have not attained that. 2018 statistics say that only, at that time, only about less than 500,000 persons with disabilities were registered with the welfare department. Actually, we have many more. We have actually about, more about 15% of any population of a country consists of persons with disabilities. But we have only registered 500,000 at the moment. And statistics in 2018 say that only 0.03% of the jobs in the public sector were filled by persons with disabilities. And in the private sector, 0.001. Okay, when is that 1% going to be achieved? Until and unless the the private sector changes its policies and becomes more open into accepting persons who are qualified, disabled persons who are qualified. There are many who are qualified, through TVET education, through skills, through opportunities given by companies to train them in IT, and also, many other NGOs preparing their persons with disabilities to enter the workforce. And when coming to the women in employment, it's still difficult to find the statistics because the statistics are not disaggregated, right? And you would be surprised that in the private and the public sector, the jobs, many people, I mean, even until today, when you think of a person with disability working, you would wonder how the person has a health problem. Do you think it's only a health problem? Well, this is the perception that many people have. Would-be employers, the general public, sometimes even the media, because I've got exposure to media has, and they always ask very standard questions. What discrimination, what will think of you, what is their concept and all that. But a lot of us, we've gone beyond that. Despite the disabilities, many of them have managed to go to schools, those with polio, and some who have become persons with disabilities along the way. So currently, those who are in the public sector, it consists of women who had been there but had developed a disability halfway. The former normal attitude was to medically board off that person, but it's always in a fix. On the one hand, when this policy came in to encourage disabled persons to serve 1% of jobs for persons with disabilities, how do they manage that? So therefore, you have to go into the details into how to make it conducive for the person to still work. And we have the Act, the Persons with Disabilities Act 2008, and there is one section on employment, if I'm not mistaken, is 29. And then it says that in the preamble, it says that reasonable accommodation should be provided, i.e., the person, a physically disabled person needs to have accessible, height of items, and then people who are blind need to have, not only Braille, but the software that is compatible to them. It is voice activated and they can carry out work. And, today we also have a doctor in Putrajaya who, after an injury, has become a person with disability and she's carrying on her work as a doctor. So these are the adjustments and the information which must reach out to the public and the would-be employers to know that, the skills are there and they can be still employed to work. And so in the public sector, you have from clerical work, officer level, executive, specialists, we have lecturers, we have even professors, we have lawyers, working in the ages department as well, women with disabilities, yeah. In the private sector too, we have, finance, those who are, good in finance, they've become executive level. And then you have even factory workers, a wide range. And these are the areas which are still open. And this is where the would-be employers, must adjust and open up their policy, their the human resource policy to include persons with disabilities, right? Yeah, I think I've just covered. Yeah, and also even the SME Corp has also done its part in providing courses to encourage people to come back to work, i.e. they've also had courses and workshops for persons with disabilities, to tap their skills and to get them employed in the private sector. And at the same time, even the public sector can employ such persons. Even Maybank, has opened up, and that there's a girl who has recently got an opportunity, a graduate from UIAM, and these are the examples that will provide as good examples, which is a plus point, for the 1% to be reached at least, before we go beyond that. I think that's about all I can say for this topic, for this question.
So when you initially said 1%, yeah, Batma, I was thinking, whoa, 1%, is that enough? But I'm actually quite surprised to know that even that 1% is not fully reached yet, yes. Right? So hopefully, I think when it comes to this, it's only until, let's just say, an employee who, throughout their work suddenly, or their career, they actually, something happens and they do, become disabled. And that's when the employer maybe would change and modify the office and make things more accessible. But however, it's absolutely right. I think from the beginning and the get-go, it's just the understanding that, yeah, basic accessibility needs to be, in all offices, in public areas, public spaces, even, housing development. Yes. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to ask a question to Ryan now. So we're going to be talking about, women in the workforce, but right now, thanks to COVID-19, everybody is working at home, right? So I want to know, how has pretty much the pandemic changed the work and the workforce for women in particular? Because you see, one of the biggest challenges a woman will face, especially if she does have children or she's caring for elderly parents or whomever at home, you know, is having to balance that. And then you've got homeschooling. Even like right now, I am from home and I'm in my living room and I've given strict orders to my children who've got their classes, you know, that they're at 6 and 9 and 10, and I'm telling them, look, you know what, Mama is busy right now. Do not open that door. So, I mean, it's a struggle. So, you know, how has it changed the workforce, particularly for women?
Okay, thanks, Aisha. So first of all, it's my pleasure here to be the thorn amongst the roses. So back to your question just now, I think what we are seeing today is really the resurfacing of what we have been experiencing all this while, right? Because if you look into women representation in the economic participation, it has been a long-standing problem that we have been facing. If you look at the B20, right, a lot of them are single mothers, a lot of them are divorcees or widows. They have to fend for themselves and their children. And then for the M40 and T20, right, career women, they do not have this sort of problem, but they have another set of problems back then. So in workplace, you might also face the social stigma where you will be overlooked for promotion. We call that the motherhood penalty, right? And then when you're married, people deem that you might not be able to travel that much, or you have to spend more time with family as well. So all this thing has been long-standing, not just in Malaysia, but I think around the world. And that puts women at a massive disadvantage. But COVID-19, as what you say, have sort of exacerbated the situation. And I think since the COVID-19 pandemic, since March, based on our data, we have been seeing hiring has been going down globally, and that's expected. That's okay, right? But what is not okay is that we have been seeing that female hiring has gone on a global all-time low, where they only consist 40% of the new hires. It's sort of gone up a little bit in June and July to about 44-45%, but still a lot of the good work that has been done previously to increase women participation has been undone due to COVID-19. And I think based on another research, it says that fathers are 3 times more likely to get promoted during COVID-19 compared to mothers. And this really helps to, you know, widen the gap between gender representation at workplace. And that's a real cause of concern because we don't know how long this situation will prolong. Hopefully we'll find a vaccine and hopefully it will be accessible to everyone by next year, fingers crossed. If not, schools will remain closed, child care center will remain closed as well, and mothers will need to perhaps take the difficult decision to leave workforce for good to tend to their children. And that will even make the situation worse when it comes to gender parity at workplace, etc. So what I will need to, you know, stress here is that a lot of workplaces today and even a lot of workplace leaders will need to take on a compassionate cap and really need to think on how we can help to support mothers better, how we can help to bridge this gap instead of leaving it to widen out to a point where we need to make a lot of drastic actions to bridge this gap as well. So I think for individuals, what we can do is that, you know, in order to bridge this gap, if you know someone who needs to, you know, find an employment, who needs to seek out opportunity, reach out to them if you can, right? It could be your neighbors, it could be relatives, it could be your friends. That's fine. That's the least that you can do. And for men, the least that you can do is try to be an ally, try to be an advocate for women's rights, because this is not a battle for just women alone. Men has to be in it as well, right? So men has to take on a leading role to champion for women's rights, women's participation at workplace and also in the economy. And also, I think for employers as well, employers has a critical role to play because you need to remove the unconscious bias in your hiring process, right? You need to remove from your job requirement things which are not necessary. Because today we are still seeing jobs which are being posted from Malaysia, stating that, you know, we prefer male only, we prefer Chinese, Indians, etc. These are good to have. It's not must have, right? A job application or job applicants needs to be, you know, really measured based on what they can contribute, based on what skills they have, and also based on the merit of the job itself. So I think, yeah, we have to rewrite the playbook, especially for employers. And yeah, I think we're going to talk more about this later on.
I want to ask you one more question about re-entering the workforce. You know, for mothers and women who have made the decision that, okay, you know what, I need to take some time off, you know, personal life, because you see, yeah, more often than not, us women, we feel that responsibility. It is upon us. So if your child, you know, soils their diaper, it's odds up, it's the mother who jumps up first before the father. It's not like a gender, it's not like a stereotype, but it does happen. I mean, we just feel that maybe it's because of the way that we're brought up. So therefore, if between the mother and the father, if one has to leave to take care for the young children or the parents or whomever at the family, it's always the mother who, you know, more often than not, it is the mother who decides to put her career aside for a while. But how about re-entering the workforce? Do you see a lot of this happening? And if so, what are the unique kind of challenges that they face?
I think that's a great question, right? You see, the reason why a lot of women have to take a step back when it comes to, you know, tending to the children, etc., is due to inherent cultural norms, right? So in our society, when you have a children, then usually the mother will take care of the children. And also we always heard the saying that, you know, behind every successful man, there's a woman. Why it has to be behind? Why it cannot be side by side or in front, right? So I think for returning mothers, I have a few sessions with them previously back in KL. I do understand their grievances and also the challenges that they are facing. It's really tough for them sometimes to look for a job, and for the ideal employers who will be willing to take them back into the workforce. A lot of them face the difficulties in terms of explaining the gap in their employment record, right? Because most employers will ask them, why are you taking a break for 2 years or 1 year, right? What happens if I take you back and then you have another child, then would you be, you know, taking another 2 years break again and stuff like that? You see, women giving birth is a natural phenomenon, right? That's something that has to happen, right? For the longevity of population of the world. Employers on the other side would need to be more mindful, would need to be more compassionate, not just empathize, but you need to be compassionate, right? Empathize is just like, you know, feeling their difficulties, feeling their challenges, but being compassionate is that what can you do in terms of alleviating these challenges, in terms of removing the barriers so that they can re-enter the workforce. And I think without conscious decision, without a conscious policy in place for organizations to attract women back into the workforce, especially for returning mothers, is going to be a tough road ahead for these mothers. So leaders will need to be compassionate. Leaders will need to sort of make difficult decisions to perhaps change the policy, or rather to proactively attract returning mothers to apply to positions which are available in their organizations and to support them. Because I think these days we are still lacking a lot of support for mothers at work. We don't see a lot of childcare centers, right? That's for one. We don't see a lot of lactation centers. In other countries in Asia, we are seeing that is on the rise, for example, like in Singapore, in Japan, etc., but not so much in Malaysia. So that is something that can be done to make it easier for women to get back into workforce after giving birth.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. I mean, it's true. And I like it how you said, you know, that quote, behind every successful man, there is a strong woman. And I think it's slowly changing, yes. You know, behind every successful woman, there is a man who, you know, who is a great ally and is extremely understanding. It's like a Marty Ginsburg, you know. And the thing is, Marty Ginsburg, it doesn't have to be seen as that he's a unicorn. You know, he's not. And then there are many men who are great allies, who are great partners. And I think what's happening nowadays also is, as a lot of mothers are in the workforce actively, and when they're raising their sons, the conversation has changed a little bit there. You know what, they're talking about, how do you be, you know, a great ally? How do you, you know, see women as your equal? And that happens now. And I think, yes, the conversation is changing. So I believe it starts from everyone. It starts from policies, it starts from corporations, and it also starts from, you know, our education for young boys. So this will be the future. Now, my next question, thank you so much, Ryan, for that. My next question is for Z. So Z, when we talk about the Malaysian creative industry, the entertainment industry, well, to say that it is male dominated, a lot of people may say that, hey, look, you know what? You have a lot more female singers. You have a lot more female hosts. You have a lot more female talents. However, the way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong, Yazzie, the way I see it, Kan, it's like the heads, the decision makers. I mean, a lot of the owners of a record label, production houses, they're still men. However, yeah, we do have a lot of women though. So, in an industry that is like that, how do you personally ensure that your creative needs and direction gets expressed the way that you want it to be expressed?
Good morning, everyone. Oops, that's a little loud, isn't it? Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizations and institutions for having me here. Aisha, you look fantastic. There's a great color on you. Such an honor to be a part of the panel today. But yes, coming back to the question, also talking about how the conversation has changed, I find that there are more women behind the consoles in the studios. There are more women who are on stage minding it. There are more women who are leading in the creative industry. However, you're right. The people who call the shots, the people who are empowered to change the game is still a male-dominated country, world. Okay, so I find that as a woman, and a woman of color as well, I feel like just as a woman, you have to work extra hard. You have to work extra hard to be heard. You have to work extra hard to be seen because, yes, there are so many female talents out there who are out in the forefront. However, if you want to be in the boardroom and call the shots, that's where you have to work extra hard. So I feel that for myself as an artist, I have to work extra hard for my art to speak for itself. I have to work extra hard to carry myself well all the time so I can be seen as a person of value. I have to get to know myself extra well so that I recognize my own worth, so that I will cultivate confidence when the time calls for it. And a lot of it is about really staying firm and really knowing your strength as a woman, to speak with confidence, but also be positive, but also staying firm. I think like knowledge within your industry, no matter what it is, either creative, knowledge is power. Wisdom is also power. And for women, I think like the way that we navigate things differently is when it comes to handle conflict. Now, I'd like to think that as women, we are born nurturing. We are born to have very high emotional intelligence, enough to know how to, again, navigate around a conversation when it comes to letting people know our truth and our honesty in making decisions. And I think this is quite important to have, especially when it comes to taking on a leadership role in the industry.
Thanks, Dee. I mean, you're absolutely right. We have to work extra hard to be taken seriously. You have to work extra hard and just prove your worth. When it comes to hosting, for instance, you've got to show that you can't, you're beyond just the skincare segments or the beauty or the lifestyle segments. You know what? Women are forces to be reckoned with within corporations, within the finance world and all that. So it's just like, hey, look, I'm here. You have to speak louder. But, it's good because whatever challenges that we face, they only serve to make us stronger, right? And like you said, to discover more about yourself and your passions and find your own true voice. And I believe that is something that is great for a woman, not just within the entertainment industry, but every industry. Now, I'm going to move back to you, Aisha. All right, so back to sex education, sexual education. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would say that, hey, look, sexual education, how important is it? But that's what I do want to know. how does educating young women about sex education, how does it impact their well-being? Because, you know, we're talking about female, and then in the future, so these young people are going to grow up to be contributors to the society and economy. So to make sure that they get the right education from the start, how important is that?
Okay, kejap, tweet. Cok, Aisyah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say something because your conversation with Z just now, dengan Ryan, dengan Basmati, I was really focusing and taking down notes. And then I was like, I do have something to say in terms of the shared prosperity punya theme today ni kan. Us women, we're not saying down with the patriarchy. We don't hate men. We know that it is important to, like Ryan said, to make men our allies. It's just that I really need everyone to work together so that we women can be part of the system that doesn't require me to be so loud and gung-ho and not gaduh all the time. Like, I don't want that because I'm not that kind of a person, you know. And we do want to be that ideal female figure that you want to have in your lives, because guys, we are in a revolution currently in actually, like Aisha said just now, Aisha said just now, in educating our own children, our own families to become better humans, so that we have a better future and better society altogether. It's shared prosperity. But seriously, we need to make sure that our voices are heard. So please, help us so that we don't have to be gila out there, you know, because you guys can help us do this. So become our ally. Okay, so now I come back to the question you asked me. Okay. Right, you asked me why is it important, right?
Yes, why is it important to educate young women on sex education, and how will this impact their well-being and their future?
So, thank you for the question. This is a chance for me to plug in the value of comprehensive sexuality education. So first of all, I'll just do a little bit of rundown of what it is, because I believe as people, right, they will resist matters that they don't have full understanding of, that they are not invested in, and they will, no, not they, we as people, if given a choice, we will actually choose to remain ignorant as long as we can. So I'll just give a little bit of a rundown what comprehensive sexuality education is. It's a lifelong conversation which starts with simple concepts and builds over time as the individual's capacity to understand increases, right? It begins with laying foundations with young children. We teach them about bodily autonomy. We teach them about saying no to things that makes them feel uncomfortable, how to differentiate safe and caring touches and unsafe and harmful touches, what is healthy behavior, and what is toxic for them. And we teach them that it is never okay for someone to pressure them to show off their bodies if they don't want to. And that the only people who get to tell them what to do with their bodies for health and safety reasons, people, are your parents and other caregivers that your parents chose for you, and a doctor at the doctor's office when your parents are present with you. And we talk about boundaries, which is so important. We talk about personal safety. We make sure that our children, our girls, understand that their bodies are theirs and theirs alone and no one else's. And with talking about all these topics, we have this tone to create that degree of openness and respect for conversations about their bodies. Now, in short, sexuality education produces confident and resilient young women. When delivered well, comprehensive sexuality education empowers young women to make informed decisions about relationships. This all starts with relationships, about relationships and sexuality, and it helps them navigate the world where gender-based violence, gender inequality, early and unintended pregnancies, HPV, HIV, segala-gala STI lah, still pose serious risks to their health and well-being and their future and the future of their children. So by teaching them sexuality education, we create effective advocates for promoting health and well-being. We create a future society that have deep respect for human rights and gender equality, and in turn we will be able to empower their children and their future children and other young people to lead healthy, safe and productive lives, which is imperative to the social and economic growth of our nation. Tadi I cakap it was detrimental, this one is imperative. Okay.
You know what, I completely agree with you, Aisha. Aisha, agreeing with Aisha. It's because it all starts there. It all starts, I mean, when you're talking to young women, to young girls, your body autonomy, knowing that you have a choice and decision. And that is like the basic foundation that we need to set for every woman and even men too. You know, and therefore I learn to love and respect myself, and I will learn to love and respect the person next to me, my neighbor, and also to have healthy relationships. Because for a woman who is in a relationship, she needs to have the buy-in of her husband in order for her to pursue a career, because you are going to have to make some sacrifices, right? So her husband needs to buy in. But if you know from the beginning how to differentiate a healthy relationship and a toxic relationship, hopefully, you know, those kind of problems will be avoided. Thank you so much for that, Aisha. So Basma, I'm going to ask you a question now, right? Now, recently we went through our national census, and that happens like what, once every 10 years, right? Once every 10 years, I believe it happens. It doesn't happen every now and then, right? And you actually recently commented on the lack of questions and focus of people with disabilities in the census, right? Why do you think that's important to include that?
Well, to me and to everyone, I think it's very, very important to include better statistics with regards to persons with disabilities, because the questions were like very general. Can you hear, you know, and there are various types of disabilities, and according to under the Act, Persons with Disabilities Act, 7 categories have been identified. But beyond that, there are more. There is invisible disability as well. There are rare diseases, and there are many types of rare diseases, you know, that are available. And, you know, thalassemia, you know, can result in disability as well. So this is where a better profiling, a better statistics can be compiled, so that when researchers are doing the job, this will come useful, number one. And also, remember I mentioned about no disaggregated data between men and women with disabilities. With the census, we'll be able to identify, okay, the disaggregated data, and also geographical location, where they are as well. And this is very, very helpful, because companies, public sector, who want to offer jobs and opportunities for persons with disabilities can go regional. And here, the statistics is very, very important, so that government departments can make use of it. And also our members of parliament, you see, when we have the elections, the members of parliament go out for votes, you know, and that's the time they go and seek even disabled people who are in their homes just to get their vote. After they get their vote, what happens? Do they look after their needs, their social, economic, and, you know, needs? No. Okay, this is where the statistics is important, to let them know, okay, here is where there are disabled persons, and it's your duty to serve them and provide. Even actually, Dewan Undangan, aduns, you know, the 505 now, a bit more that we have in the country, and the 220 at the moment members of parliament, additional 2 coming later. It's their role to serve the whole population, including persons with disabilities, and under the persons with disabilities, women with disabilities as well. And that's the main reason that I brought up. And also the local authorities, the role of local authorities to provide for services, you know, let it be whether the parks are available, accessible for, you know, children with disabilities, parents, elderly persons with disabilities, we are also, on another point, we are also moving into an aging society. And with aging also comes, physical disability, hearing, and sight as well. And also those with dementia and all that. How are we going to manage them? So this, and also dementia, I don't know, I think there is a larger population among women who get dementia compared to men. So this aggregated data is very, very important as well, which can be, captured by our Department of Statistics. And it is important because it can go into planning, it can go into how the Wacana Malaysia develops planning and the programs and the allocation of annual, funding under the budget. Well, today we're going to have a very interesting outcome anyway. And so it's very important. Statistics are very important. So that is why it has to cover everyone and also their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, sorry, did you want to continue on that? Sorry, did you want to continue on that? Do you have something else you wanted to add, Basma?
Me? On the same topic or the other question?
On the same topic.
On the same topic. Okay. At the moment, as a librarian, I also have come to know that there are plenty of research that had been done. Data has been collected, even though, this is besides the role of statistics department, yeah, a lot of primary data has been collected, but they have not been combined. There is no one central database of statistics. And recently in one webinar, I also heard a blind person, Wong Yun Lung, who mentioned that the Ministry of Health has come up with a report, 2019 report, where they have identified more persons with disabilities compared to what JKM has collected. So this is where this private, this sectional thing, it's very sad, that it cannot be combined into one major database that would be useful for the whole country and for development, and this is of absolute importance, paramount importance, I would say, data collection and making it central.
Absolutely, things need to be done. So I have, personal friends who have children, living with disabilities, and although there are schools that have inclusive classes with class pass and all that, a lot of times, they're not given enough. There's not enough, and parents opt, and if they have the opportunity, because that's when, okay, we've got the pay disparity. So parents who can afford it will either homeschool their kids or take their kids to international schools. But what if you can't afford it? So, not the kind of early intervention is not available to families that need it because of, it's just not available to them. Thank you so much, Basma. Now, I'm going to ask you a question now, Ryan. If you were listening to the earlier session, we had the founder of Kiddo Care, and she was talking about the gig economy. I absolutely love Kiddo Care, but the gig economy is considered now as like a remedy to solving women's social economic problems. There have been numbers that, because of the whole CMCO, like you said, hiring of women is down. A lot of women have, I think, employers have given a choice between, okay, who do I need to retain? I retain a female employer and a male employer. Sometimes they may choose the male employee, and then, women lose out like that. So they saying, okay, look, what? Gig economy, that's a great way for us to do things, right? What are your thoughts on this? And do you think it's like a sustainable solution?
Well, first of all, I think the gig economy is thriving in Malaysia, right? I think based on one of the statistics, about 1/4 of Malaysian workforce are in gig economy. And prior to COVID, even LinkedIn has done our own research. We are seeing that the gig economy in Malaysia is increasing at I think about 33% year-on-year rate. So that's a huge component of our economy today. Whether it's a sustainable model to address women's social economic issues or not, I would love to think so. However, I'm also aware that it has its own shortcomings, right? So if you look at gig economy, it's essentially temporary jobs. It could be, and most of them are in the service sector, right? And as a result of the changing business environment, where we are in the caring economy, where we are in the sharing and barter economy, a lot of people are dabbling in gig economy in part-time basis. For example, like software developers. We also have lawyers, accountants, project workers. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people who are in need on a full-time basis as well. People who are like project managers or your Grab riders or Foodpanda, etc. So does it provide an avenue for women? Yes, I do believe so, because it actually provides the flexibility for women to be able to dictate their own working hours, at the same time still earning additional income as well. It also provides them with greater opportunity these days, because as companies are trying to navigate the challenges of COVID-19, they also need to have more part-time workers as well. And that's when you'll be able to have more opportunities in terms of finding an employment. And I think one of the recent advantages of being in the gig economy today is really on social protection, right? So traditionally, there's no social protection when you're in a gig economy. But I think recently, based on the recent Bencana package, right, the government has set aside, I think, about 50 million ringgit to contribute towards SOCSO and also EPF Aisaraan. So that's great. And also, I think government has also allocated about 25 million for MDEC to drive the global online workforce program as well. This is mainly for the gig economy workers, right? What is concerning right now is that despite that, not many has signed up. And I think based on the latest data, only about 7% of the entire gig economy workers in Malaysia has signed up with SOCSO. So there's still about 93% of them who are still not covered. And they are at a risk, because if, let's say, there's a loss of income, or touch wood, if there is any accidents while at work, then they would not be able to support themselves. So there's a good side and then the downside. So now I'm going to talk about the downside even further. When it comes to flexibility, as much as we like to think that it provides women with flexibility to dictate their working hours, sometimes it's not so much, because, for example, if you are a single mother and you have a few kids at home, right? How are you going to, work on a gig economy? You still have to leave your children at home, right, to fend for themselves while you are outside working and earning an income for the family. At the same time, with gig economy, there's always irregular payments, and your income stream is not consistent as well. So that sort of prevent you from having a proper planning in terms of expenditure, in terms of family planning, in terms of just a stable lifestyle that you would desire. And then, of course, as with most of the freelance job, gig economy these days, your compensation will be dictated by the number of hours that you put in. So, for example, I've seen a lot of Grab drivers who is driving like 18 hours a day to the brink of burnout. That will have a long-term impact on, mental health, on social well-being, etc. So then there is definitely an opportunity for women to, address some of these issues with gig economy, but they have to be mindful of the downsides as well. I think for government to step in to regulate the gig economy to a certain extent, that will help. And of course, I think the good news with the Bencana package, where you provide social protection for gig economy workers, those are great news for them. And also try to consider to enact certain laws or policies that will mandate employers to treat contractors as employees as well, so that they will benefit from the employment benefit that is available for full-time workers. So yep, that's my take.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Okay, so Aisha, I've just been told that you have to leave. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us, for talking to us about the importance of sexual education for the present and the future of young women who will soon join the workforce. Now, right before you leave,
from Malaysia, we're doing it from Malaysia
and the world. Okay, let's go bigger. So before you leave, I would love to have like a quick photo. Okay, so I'm guessing the organizers will organize it, so we'll all just betulkan everything and
Yeah,
we'll just give it a smile.
betulkan rambut, and they will organize it.
Ryan
Oh.
got spiky hair. Look, why like that? No, just joking. Sorry.
Syarizan pun join gambar lah.
Tak ada. Saya tutup gambar balik.
Alah,
Okay.
join lah.
All right, we're going to get the organizers. So Aisha, you want to have what kind of shots would you like? Let you dictate the shots.
This
Okay,
one.
so,
Oh my God! Sorry.
Aisyah pun boleh.
Okay,
To
Siti
Aisha,
Aisha, how would you like to dictate the shots? And then we get
Can we do
Aisha
it like
Sinclair.
the way you did it prior to this? One's a serious one.
Oh,
Well,
one's a serious one.
We look like
Mhm.
like the boss. And then the other one is the gila-gila one, you said.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I
let's
like
do
that.
Let's do
I
one
agree with
now.
Aisha.
Okay. The serious with a slight corporate smile to it. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, pose. And let's capture that. Okay, I think they've captured it. And one more, the gila one at the count of 3. Freestyler, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think they got it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, Aisha.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
so
Aisha
just
Sinclair, I'm
since
going to leave it to
you're
you.
Wait, since you're here, Sharizan, I just want to do time check. So we're good right now, yeah? We started slightly later.
Yeah, we still
And we're
got some
going to
time.
continue.
Yes.
All right, cool. So about
No worries.
half an hour, 20 minutes. Thanks, Sharizan.
Yeah,
Oh,
about half an hour. Yeah.
half an hour. Okay, cool.
Half an hour, 20 minutes. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to continue our conversation with Basmavati, with Ryan, and also Z Avi. Talking about the opportunities that are available to women, but mainly focusing more on social well-being. There are a lot of strong expectations when it comes to women, how they're supposed to be within the society as a daughter, sister, wife, spouse, mother. At the same time, we're supposed to be the active contributors to the economy, which we want that. We want that. Everybody wants that opportunity to give more. So we're just trying to find that little balance, and hence our discussion here today. Now, Z, my question's for you. All right, so this is about diversity within the industry, within sectors. It's proven to be quite beneficial for other sectors. Do you think having more of a balanced female representation within the entertainment and the creative industry, do you think it will improve maybe some of the products that the industry creates and comes out with?
Oh, absolutely. I just would like to come back to what Siti Aisha, I miss her already, what she was saying earlier, right? About, and I'm going to try to not rush through my answers. Okay, so first of all, most important is education is so important, and what Siti Aisha said about some of us are not as extroverted when it comes to making our voice heard. And it's true, how long will the narrative remain the same? We are your colleagues, we are your co-workers, we are a team. Kita maju jaya bersama. Now, I feel that women's contribution, especially I'm speaking on behalf of the creative industry. Now, as a person of the arts, women are art, honestly, because it stems from the same place. Art makes you feel things. Art is from your emotions. Art is from your thought process. And I think with women contributing more into the industry, you get more point of views. Each a boy and a girl and the non-binaries, we all have our own way of seeing things, and we should be allowed to do and say and perform accordingly. With more point of views, you can reduce judgment, and of course that will improve. How would it not? But it isn't easy. We all need help and support that we can receive. At the very least, having more representation in the creative community will allow more of the younger generation see that, yes, I can, yes, I am represented, and yes, I am noticed.
Thank you so much, Z. Now I'm going to start weaving in some of the questions that have been coming through on the Zoom chat. Also, hopefully there's some questions coming in from Facebook. If there are, we've got some teams from the organizers who are going to be going through it. So our first question from the viewers is from Dr. Amina Kayani, and hers is to you, Basma. Your thoughts about having more representation in the national consensus and getting the data seem to have struck a note with her. So the question is, from your valuable experience, which department could champion the data aggregation into a database accessible to all? So which department should champion this?
Right. It's very difficult to say because currently the Ministry for Women, Family and Community Development is the one in charge for issues on disability. They have Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat, under which is the Jabatan Pembangunan Orang-Orang Upaya. And when other ministries are approached for data, they always point to Kementerian Wanita. Then we all know that generally Department of Statistics is the one that gathers the official data. So it is very difficult for me to suggest who should be the main person collecting. I mean, logically, it must be DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia, and all other ministries must contribute actively. So only then, we will have a real, and Department of Statistics definitely, its name itself speaks about statistics. So even, international agencies who are looking for data can take this as the valid source of information. So I feel, but at each ministry level, there must be a coordinating unit gathering the data and channeling it into the main database. So that's my simple, straightforward answer. Only then we can find solution. If we still go around, every time something comes up, we always go back to the starting line. And this is what has been going on year after year after year where statistics are concerned. And whenever I attend conferences, and it's not peculiar to our country, even overseas, I've been overseas, and it's the same thing I hear, data, the lack of data, on disability issues. And like here I say, disaggregated statistics. So I feel back again, DOSM that should lead the central database, should be in charge of the central database.
All right, thank you. And I guess when it comes to everything, there's no longer the pointing like, hey, you don't know, you need to talk to so and so. So I'll pass you here, I pass you there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it how you say that every ministry and every department needs to actually actively contribute to growing this database, and also knowing where to go for that information. So that's how it can also remain relevant, remain refreshed, remain updated with the right numbers and the right representation. So I'm looking at some questions right now, and we've got some really fun ones. So I'm just going to ask, and I think these are something that that all three of you can answer. So this one's an interesting one, and it says here, how do you think, this is also from Dr. Amina, she wants to know, how do you think we could address certain stigma and societal stereotypes about gender roles at home? For instance, an example of this would be like maternity leave. Okay, so right now we've got maternity leave, it's a month. Some government agencies and corporations are increasing this to 3 months, but we don't have much paternity leave. Maybe a maximum of 2 weeks. Why? Because the father, the husband, is not considered as a main caretaker. He is not have an active role in that. So that's a stereotype, correct? So, so another one is, an example is whenever a father cooks at home, the husband cooks at home and he makes a meal and everybody goes like, wow, you know what, that's great. But here's the thing, he's just contributing to the household, which is something that an active member in the household would do. But then there is not much recognition for all the women who will, masak dinner. I have friends who wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they masak breakfast, they come home at 7 o'clock after working the entire day to cook dinner and prep and help with homework, to repeat it the exact same thing the next day. So how can we address these stigmas and societal stereotypes about gender roles? Okay, can I have a show of hands? Who would like to answer this one? Hey, if nobody puts up their hand, okay. I was about to point to. Ryan, you can do it.
Yeah, so yes, when you talk about the paternity leave, I think I'm still baffled, as in today, we still do not have a law that mandated paternity leave in Malaysia, right? So we are going all gung-ho about, gender parity, gender equality. We wanted women to have a more active representation in the workforce, but at the same time, we do not have a paternity leave. So when a woman gives birth, right, due to the provision of maternity leave, then the mother is expected to stay at home and take care of the children for the first 2 to 3 months. And for fathers, if they do not have a paternity leave, then they're expected to go to work. So that is an imbalance that is happening right now. So I would strongly vouch, or rather support, any provision that will mandate a paternity leave, at least for 1 week to begin with, so that father can sort of contribute towards caregiving, especially when the wife has just given birth. As you know, when women, they go through labor, and when they go through especially cesarean section, then they will need to have longer time to recover, right? So they will need to rely on their husband to take care of them, to take care of other children if they have any. So paternity leave comes in really, really handy. And when you talk about gender equality at work, it will not happen if, let's say, there's no gender equality at home, right? So that's one. And sorry, what's your second question again just now, Aisha? The second question is on.
So the second question is, how do we address these stigmas and societal stereotypes?
Yeah, so I think it has to do a lot with education, right? Be it informal education or formal education. So children has to be taught that, these days we no longer have stereotyping in terms of, father has to go to work and mom has to do unpaid housework at home. And I think it's also incumbent upon education institutions and also government ministries of education. How can we incorporate this into our curriculum? I'm not sure how far has we progressed since I've came out from school, but I remember during my time back in Sekolah Rendah, we always read about, bapaku pulang dari kerja, and then mak will be doing memasak, mencuci, and membasuh, things like that. So the stereotyping starts from when we are very young. So that has to change in terms of the curriculum, in terms of education for children. And I believe once we have that, then there will be a greater awareness. And once they grow up, then the society will also accept both men and women doing different things, be it at home or outside of work.
Right. So I think Ainul said in the previous chat session, pretty much the same thing. Yeah. And, it's reiterating and it pretty much agreeing with what you said, Ryan. Those kind of stereotypes need to change. And it needs to change in school textbooks, which still would show the lady and the female as the main caregiver at home. Now, a lot, and this is happening a lot in the West, where people are becoming a lot more sensitive. Terminology, words that you use, being politically correct. So some feedback may be like, alamak, the world's becoming too sensitive, but it's actually quite good because, once those changes, the words that we use to describe people, because words have power, once that changes, and then I think it's like the whole, it will kind of sort of fall into place. Now, next question. This is from Dr. Salasia Abbas, and it's for you, Z. Oh, sorry, Basma. You wanted to add to that?
I would like to contribute also.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really great to see that, there are so many men taking part in this program, which is focusing on women. That's great to see and hear. And even yesterday's program, I managed to view, and how the men are speaking, like Ryan today, to help bring up the status of women. And this is something very, very positive. And I think, we're talking about the maternity and paternity leave. Of course, the paternity leave is definitely required. But what makes some women fear is that there may be a category of men, we always have some bad apples, who may misuse that paternity leave. So that is what is a fear. But then again, it doesn't mean that you should cancel it. That increased paternity leave is important, both in the public and the private sector. That's my point. And also talking about the gender equality and about the role, about, the home, where you went on to the second question about how to address this gender parity and their roles, in the household work and all that. Well, when you look at this COVID-19 pandemic, of course, there are lots of negatives. We have, come to how many million deaths worldwide, and even in our country, and the numbers are just keeps rising, the red spots. But on the positive side, the lockdown has brought the family together, and the roles that we had expected of the men, to help out is happening. It is happening in reality. And let this be a lesson, a good example that COVID has taught us to be continued after COVID leaves us. So that is one area. And I think it is important that this new norm is accepted and the positive things are taken in and practiced in our daily life after this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for adding that, Basma. Yeah, it's true. Because of COVID-19 and everybody is at home. Yes, the head of the house, there was that whole issue, that assuming that immediately it's the father. But the good thing is the men went out and they did the grocery shopping, and then they learned the difference between spring onion and kuchai. And these are, it's something that maybe would just the women in the kitchen would know, but now it's slowly happening. So Z, back to my question from Dr. Salasya Abbas, and she says, as a private music educator, we find it extra challenging to encourage more private students to take on traditional music classes, or at least explore more about the traditional music and our heritage. Could you please share how you did it? Z, your mic is on mute. If you could kindly unmute yourself.
Okay, wonderful. I forget that sometimes. Dr. Salasya, thank you so much for this question. As I was saying, I just still wonder why we're learning the recorder in school. Coming from, right? I know how to play My Heart Will Go On it. That's all I know how to play on the recorder. But as I actually have had this conversation with musicologists in Sarawak, actually, who are trying to have the sape being taught in school, who are trying to really champion for the schools to learn about the tribal folklores, tribal music, tribal dances, and everything that has to do with appreciating our roots. Because this is a discussion that has been done before between them and I. We've always come across challenges, Dr. Salasya, and I can definitely understand where you're coming from. But for me as an artist who's not like my dear friend Alena Murang, who really is a true purist when it comes to advocating for the Sarawak culture with the sape, to me, I regard her as an international artist as well, because she does go all over the world to share the stories and culture and heritage of her ancestors and the people of Borneo. So for me, I personally am more in the pop world. I guess I will generalize myself as that. Even though my main instruments are the guitar and the ukulele. However, I do try when it demands it, okay, I do try to incorporate anything and everything that has to do with my culture and my heritage. And we are Malaysians. There is so much heritage and culture here. I do not know why our traditional musics are not being taught in school. Now, I'm very lucky to know and play with musicians who are from Aswara, you know, where they're more hands-on and they do reinstill this sense of pride with our culture and traditional music, which are so beautiful if you actually hear and learn about the history of where our traditional music comes from. And it comes actually from all over the place, the genesis of Malaysian traditional music. And when we say traditional music in Malaysia, you're not only looking at Malay traditional music, you're looking at Indian traditional music, Chinese international, traditional music, tribal, orang asli, and I feel like there is so much to cover, though yet I don't know about anyone else, but I stopped. I feel like music education didn't go through sekolah menengah even. I don't remember learning music in sekolah menengah.
No, I don't think we did. I think it stopped, right?
I think in primary school only. That's all I remember. But I went to Chinese primary school, so I just remember the recorder and the club castanets and triangle. But I would have loved to learn to even touch tablas, to even touch sape, to even, know what a kucing is. I would have loved, and I feel like this should be instilled in our early education as Malaysians. So Dr. Salasia, I would love to come visit your music school in Malacca when the world heals, and really would love to talk shop with you about how we can possibly work together, because I love culture, I love heritage, even though, like I said, I do integrate it in my music when the time calls for it, but I do try to rep my heritage and culture however and whenever I can. But for me personally, music and language are the same thing. Music is a universal language, even if you don't know the language, but it's one of the best ways to get through to people. When it comes to traditional music, I do come from a generation now, even more so, we are starting to realize how rich our traditions are and how rich our roots are. And we do come from a generation as well where we are, I have to say, I'm on Twitter, so I'm all up on that business where people are able to have an outlet and platform to really use those to speak about what they believe in. So that's how I did it, I guess. You can do it subtly as well. That's just what I did. Like I actually with my American bandmates in the past, I taught my guitarist to play the sape. So we travel with the sape everywhere in the world, which was nice to for people to be like, hey, what's that? A sape? Sape. But yes. It's very important to share, she said, to share how important it is, music and technology. Okay, in regards to technology, I miss live performances. I'm more of a live performer rather than a studio performer. And right now I do encourage everybody, no matter what industry you're in, and especially within the creative industry, even though you're the person, I tak suka social media, I'm not really technology, I kind of buta IT. I also #buta IT, but we have to start digitalizing our work because that is the future. That is our platform now. So that's very important. Content and data both go hand in hand, king. So we have to start to understand how to create content, our demographics, and how to target them and how to educate them.
And use both technology and use that as a platform to push our traditional, our cultural music, tribal music. And I see a lot of that happening now. So maybe that's one thing, Doctor, you can actually try, and that'll be interesting. Now, our next question is for Ryan. It's from Laila. and she asked, do you think the gig economy will contribute to the overall disparity in unequal income between men and women? For example, in Japan, even though they managed to get more women to work, but statistics show that women still earn less on average because some of them engage in part-time work. This would mean that women are still disadvantaged economically. What do you think about this?
Yes, I do agree.
Ryan, we can't quite hear you.
Hi.
The source of your microphone, if you could.
Better, no?
Oh yeah, better. Good.
Okay.
Slightly louder. Thank you so much.
Okay. So, yep, I think we are still seeing gap in terms of pay quality among men and within the gig economy or household. I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and one of the first steps that even more exposure to gender-based pay data, right, across the nation. I think we already have that. I've seen some data from Jabatan Statistics recently, right, where there's a gap between how much a woman is earning compared to a man. I think women is earning at about 93 cents to $1 that a man is earning, right? So that is the current situation right now. For LinkedIn, because we are the world's largest professional network, we are also at a unique position to address this as well. What we are planning to do and what we have done, in fact, in certain regions like US and Europe, is that we have incorporate salary data into our solution so that members, job seekers, and even employees will be able to have access to this data to make an informed decision when it comes to negotiating for their pay. Let's say you are a woman, and based on the data that you can derive from LinkedIn, you understand that you are being underpaid based on your role and based on your cities. And then you have the bargaining chip to perhaps negotiate that with your employers to seek for an equal pay, right? So I think data plays an important role and is a very vital role as well. So that's one. The other thing that I would like to stress as well is that just now I love how both Z and Madam Bakma was mentioning about data. I think data is very important these days. In fact, they are saying that data is the most valuable thing, no longer oil, right? So at LinkedIn, we have this luxury of having all this great, amazing data. And we have partnered with World Economic Forum to try to understand what is the future of work, what are the latest trends, etc. One of the things that we have studied recently is that based on the Global Gender Gap Report that we have just published very recently, we are looking at emerging jobs around the world, right? And each of these emerging jobs has a specific skills that are mainly anchored around disruptive tech. And these are the skills that are not highly represented by women. What this means for us is that we are at a risk of letting men design the future for us. Because a lot of the disruptive tech are actually anchoring around AI, automation, natural language processing, which are the technology that will dictate our future, our society, how we will behave, how we will purchase, how we will live, how we will go to work, etc. And by having an imbalanced gender representation in the production and also in the innovation of this technology, it will have a long-term impact in the way that our society will be able to live and to progress in harmony. So I think there are a few areas of opportunities that perhaps government and also industry players can look into, because we do have a pretty good talent pool of women who are well versed in areas like data science, nanotechnology, and also genetic engineering as well. These are the areas which can be easily upskilled and reskilled, and then to transition them to disruptive tech job roles so that they can play a more prominent role in dictating the future technology. We need to have more women say in terms of how we are going to roll out this technology. If not, then we're going to face the ramifications and the consequences later on. We need to have a more equitable society in the future. So yeah, that's what I would like to share as well.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. I know we started slightly later than it was on the program, but I want to be respectful of your time too, yeah, of my panelists. So one more question. This, I think, I will put it through to Basma, to you. It's from Laila also, and she wants to know, how much do safety issues, example, sexual violence and harassment, affect a woman, regardless of her ability, affect a woman's social well-being? Do you think a lot of decision-making for women centers around the issue of safety? Basma, you want to unmute your mic? That would be really awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yes. There's been a lot of talk, and I'm firstly a woman, then a person with a disability, and one of my passion is about safety of women, and also about the sexual harassment and sexual abuse against women. Right. Okay. Yes, it is definitely a very, very important issue, but how many people are willing to talk about it? When studies are made, and then it becomes classified document. There had been a study on children, abuse, sexual abuse against children with disabilities. It is still under control, not released. The former, when the Pakatan Harapan took over, the deputy PM, who was also minister for KPWKM, did say that she would find release, but until today it's not released. So when and how are we going to find solutions and educate the public in general to stop all that? Okay, talking about challenges faced by women with disabilities, right? Okay, when they're going to work, they have to use public transport, right? And in public transport, like the LRT and all that, there's a lot of movement and all. And, this personal safety about personal touching and all that can't be avoided. Yeah. And, sometimes we hear of strange, bizarre incidents happening in India and all that, in other countries. It also happens in Malaysia, but how many of them report about it? Yeah. And here, okay, we have the different categories of persons with disabilities, physically disabled persons, women with physical disabilities, those with learning disabilities as well. Some of them are out in the open, some of them are brave enough to take the public transport. But when someone knows that, oh, this person is a bit low and slow, and all this, the touching and this abuse happens. Blind women have confessed, we had focus group discussion with them, and they've said, so many things happen, but they dare not go and report. For the blind women, it becomes a very big problem to go and report, make a police report. Why? Because standard questions, where it happened, they can say, whether in a taxi or in a public transport, but you have to get the description of the perpetrator. How is a blind person going to give it? Okay, that's one. Next is the women who are deaf. All right. Well, recently we heard that 2 Bangladeshis in Ulu Terengganu raped a woman with disability. And when I started reading about it, 9 men went for raped 1 woman who was deaf. And they were given sentences. They were given lower sentences for molesting. How are their interests represented? The dignity, and who looks after it? The NGOs, do they come forward? It says no. NGOs are more interested in many other issues like, income earning and all that, accessibility, all that, pride. But who's going to look into this sexual harassment, personal safety? It is still a big question mark. And I wish to pursue this, from now on. And, abuse even in the past, there had been, retired police personnel who had abused a woman with learning disability until she became pregnant. So we have to have practical, exposure, and this is what I would recommend, highlighted in, sometimes we watch dramas that go on. I sometimes I'm I'm a drama fan, but from TV3, TV1, TV2 and all that, the same stories, bring in all this, bring in this aspect to educate the people, yeah, and speak openly, and get these victims, like for example, I was listening to the the lawyers workspace webinar, I was a participant. It happens among lawyers as well. What more the general public, right? So I think this is what, we have to pay attention to. And, women with disabilities definitely face much more problem than a person without disability, a woman without disability. So I'm willing to take up. I mean, we have the D11 section and the PDRM, but how much is the PDRM exposed to, like the two areas, the deaf and blind women that I spoke about, learning disabled women I spoke about. Yeah, we must have. I mean, SOP is not just enough. Get the reality, expose what is really happening. Incestuous, centers which look after children when they grow up, disabled children, and as they grow up, they also go through puberty. What happens? Is anybody keeping a check on what's happening there? It can happen from women to women as well as men to women. Yeah. So this is a reality which we all cannot close our both eyes to and cannot close our ears to. That's all. Man.
Fatma, that really, you know what, you're absolutely right. This needs to be spoken about. This needs to be brought to the forefront. I believe it is everybody's responsibility to look out for each other. Now, already we talk about, yes, women, we face certain challenges that are, that are unique to women. But at the same time, women with disabilities, the challenges that you face, because yes, we have all heard these stories. And I do hope that, something can be done. Batma, if you do want to bring this and highlight this, and you need some sort of like support and all that, this is me telling you, I would love to help in any way that I can.
Thank you so much.
On that very strong note, we are going to end this session right now. I want to say thank you so much to my amazing panelists for sharing your stories, for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom on the topic of, women and our well-being. Yeah. So to Siti Aisha Hassan Hasri, the Spot Community Program, she had to leave slightly earlier. Absolutely fun talking to her. Ryan, Head of Public Sector for LinkedIn, thank you so much for proving to be such a wonderful ally for women. Z Avi, just for bringing your energy and telling us and hopefully being, a leader and a forefront within the creative industry, the voice of women, and of course, Basma Vati Krishnan, for your support of women, no matter what the abilities. And yes, thank you so much. So we've already taken our picture, so we don't need to take one anymore yet.
No, we're going to take one more. We're going to take one more. We're going to get the audience to turn on their cameras. Okay. So we're going to do a very big group picture. So can we get all our viewers to kindly turn on your cameras right now? That would be great to have a group photo. All right. If not, ZRV will sing for you. Semalam I call you, you tak answer. You kata
itu anak I punya
pergi dinner.
Anak I punya favorite song tu.
Kelas gitu kan.
ZRV, panik dia.
Okay, let's have a group photo. Ready, everybody? Cameras on. 1, 2, 3. Smile.
One more. 1, 2.
And one more, gila pose. Okay, freestyler. Ready? 1, 2, 3, freestyler.
Okay, one more. Okay, give me your best shot. 1, 2, 3. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yes. Big round of applause to Aisha Sinclair. Thank you so much for being a moderator. I'll see you at the studio if ever this lockdown is over. Okay. To all our panelists, thank you so much. Batmavati, Ziavi, Ryan, and Siti Aisha. Just now, thank you for being a part of Women in Shared Prosperity webinar today. And looks like we will be wrapping up. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Institute Masa Depan Malaysia. Thank you, Talent Corp. Thank you, Women, Girls, and this is being supported by Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga, dan Masyarakat. Yes, no one should be left behind, and everybody should be a part of the whole ecosystem as well. And to all our panelists, once again, thank you so much. With that, everybody, have a great day till we meet again sometime soon. This is Women in Shared Prosperity webinar signing off, and bye-bye. Take care and stay safe.
Bye.